So I'm Phil Tibitoski. I'm president at Young Horses Games out of Chicago, Illinois. I guess I do like a whole myriad of things, mostly business development and production related. But like I went to school for programming and did like a small amount of programming on the first Octodad, the student one. But then from there on out, I've been handling basically all the miscellaneous stuff that anybody who is directly making the game shouldn't have to worry about.
Mm-hmm. So Young Horses, the studio was basically founded by a bunch of classmates at DePaul, right?
Right, yeah. There were 9 of us originally out of a team of 18 that worked on the first Octodad that went forward trying to make a studio. Lost a couple people along the way when either they've been like, oh, actually, I don't want to work nights and weekends on top of my other stuff to do this.
Yeah.
This risky thing that may not even pan out. But yeah, most of the team right now is still that original team, minus with a couple people that we've hired since.
So when you talk about the studio, is there a physical studio that exists, or are you a work from home virtual office?
I mean, right now we're work from home virtual, but yeah, for the last, since like mid 2014, we've had an actual studio, like an actual office.
And that's in Chicago?
Yeah. It's not very far from me.
Okay.
But yeah, so like up until, end of February, we were working out of there. We still have the space, and I still have to go there here and there, but.
Mm-hmm. And like, you started from, there was like a student project for Octodad, and then people really liked the demo that you guys created, so you did a Kickstarter for Deadliest catch, and you didn't raise like a whole lot of money for it, right? It was like 24,000 or something.
Yeah, it was around 24,000, and at the time it felt like it's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
In general, but it's not a lot of money to make a video game with.
Yeah, that's what people.
I meant. But yeah, at the time it was a pretty big deal because I think at the time like a huge sum of money on Kickstarter was like 100,000 or something like that, and 20,000 was great. And it wasn't until like Double Fine came in with Double Fine Adventure that it started getting higher and higher, and the kind of bar was raised as to what seemed realistic in terms of what your goals could be.
Yeah, that's a good point, that like raising 24,000 was not an easy task on Kickstarter back then. This was almost 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, and I think with like Indie Game the movie and some other stuff around that time had also raised a decent chunk of money. I think there was around 75,000, something like that. But for us, it was more like, we put out this free thing and people really dug it, but was anyone actually going to pay for it when it came down to it was our question. Did people only like this because it was a free thing that they could just get and mess with? Or, did they really like it enough? Had we done something exceptional that people would want to pay for?
I bought it twice.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. No, I was, I think it was PS4 or PS, whatever PlayStation it was on, and then again on Switch, because whenever something comes out on Switch, I'm obligated to buy it.
It's great for Switch. I mean, I'll say this because I made the game, but it's great for Switch because of being able to, take the Joy-Cons off and be multiplayer that way.
Yeah, and also just the fact you guys added co-op to the gameplay. Let's just talk about this for a second. We'll start talking about Bugsnax, but the gameplay in Octodad was so different that I thought it was hilarious that when you were like, yeah, here's co-op for it. How did that happen? Like, at what point during development were you like, this would actually work as a co-op game?
Co-op came in pretty late, actually.
Okay.
I want to say like maybe 3 or 4 months before release. And we were just like thinking about the fact that we were already technically controlling each of those limbs independent from one another. So it kind of seemed like an obvious thing to try once we realized that we should try it. And once we did it, people had like a really good time with it, and it became like it was already the kind of game, like Untitled Goose Game is also this sort of thing where if you put it on while you get people over, it's immediately more fun even than it is by itself, because it's fun to spectate. For a lot of people, it's sometimes more fun to watch someone play Octodad than it is, to play themselves.
Yeah.
And so it made a lot of sense once we like happened upon co-op for Octodad, the multi-limb support.
I won't say that Octodad Deadliest Catch was hard, but it ramps. Like, as you progress through the game, I'd say that last level, very difficult.
Much harder than the beginning, for sure.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like it lends to what you're talking about, like, where Untitled Goose came, like, people would pass the controller around the room. I remember doing that with my brother when Deadliest Catch came out, because I was like, I'm done.
I'm done with this part. Yeah.
And then they pick it up, and then like we kind of beat the game together, even though we weren't playing co-op. But yeah, I that last level in Octodad,
yeah,
fire and the music. When was that conceived? When did you come up with that like denouement for that story?
I think from the beginning we decided to go that direction because we just thought it would be funny, because the first Octodad also ends, for some reason everything is on fire and you're climbing up a ladder in like the living room, and we figured it would be funny, at least it was funny to us internally, to end the second game also with everything on fire and you're having to do these like gymnastics as this octopus. Although like when Deadliest Catch first came out, the last I want to say the last third of the game was like overly difficult compared to the rest, and it felt like the difficulty curve just all of a sudden went like straight up for that last section. And we went back during the first 3 or 4 months that it was out and retooled a lot of those ending levels to make them a little bit more forgiving, or at least make more sense, because in some cases it just wasn't very clear. So it was interesting because we almost did a sort of like remastering of those areas entirely, rather than only just fixing some bugs with them, stuff like that. And I think it's something that tonally, it like the rest of the game is difficult, but it is difficult to everyone kind of equally, given that the control scheme is fairly unique compared to a lot of things that people might play. And we enjoyed the fact that it was kind of equally difficult, but then towards the end of the game, our team all being people who have played games their whole lives and love video games, etc., we were like, well, this is too easy now, right? Like we need to ramp it up towards the end, so there's like a little bit of a challenge. And I feel like looking back at it now, that was not the right move, or at least a lot of the feedback we received and the way that we felt about the stuff that we've heard about the game has been that the hilarity of the like mundane situations kind of leaves when you get into that sort of like, you're running across rafters in a cafeteria and it's on fire and someone's chasing you, and like that's a lot to process while you're also moving each of these octopus limbs, one at a time. And for us it's easy because we've been playing it for years, but for someone who's only started the game like 2 hours ago, it's kind of a wild thing to ask of them.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap with Super Mario Maker 2, where I make a level, and my levels are insanely hard.
Right.
But by the time you're done making them, they're pretty easy for you, right?
Yeah, you're the expert. Yeah.
Yeah, because you literally laid down every plank that Octodad has to walk on and everything. So yeah, I think that's a challenge that I think all game developers probably run into, and that's why playtesting is so important, and showing it to other people as you're developing it, right?
Well, it's an interesting thing of like a playtest pool of people, because we had people testing the game probably every other week or so, different levels, but eventually, at least like amongst our circle of friends and their friends, you run out of people who haven't played before, and at some point everybody becomes so familiar that their like feedback is no longer as useful in terms of like how a person experiences for the first time. And like, I don't know how long you spent on your Mario Maker level, but having us do that for like 2.5 years, getting to the end of that amount of time, we really brainwashed ourselves into thinking like where the difficulty was versus where it actually was for somebody.
The most recent one I uploaded, which only 2 people on Earth have beaten, it took me like 6 weeks of just like in my free time. Obviously, it's not that big.
Iterating on it.
There's constraints and everything that, you know, you run out of parts or whatever. But yeah, no, I guess one last question about Octodad that I think could lead into our conversation about Bugsnax. The music in Octodad. Is that game like a musical? Like what is that? Like because there's like a song that's kind of this constant theme for the game. How early on was that even in the original demo, or like when did you decide that there was going to be this like almost operatic element to the game?
Yeah, the original Octodad had a theme for the trailer that we had asked a band, like, can we just use this? It's a free game, we're not selling it. It made a lot of sense, and like in the trailer, what a lot of people pointed out was that theme. And so when we went to make Deadliest Catch, we had a friend, Ian McKinney, who wrote the Octodad theme song, just because he wanted to. And then we decided that we wanted to buy it from him. Like, this is great, this is perfect. And like, I think with Octodad in particular, and even Bugsnax now, it fits a sort of like Saturday morning cartoon theming or motif or something like that, and gets people like ready in a very like, this is what the game is, this is what it's going to be like, and kind of the tone and the themes of it, and you get all of that in, you know, the first 2 minutes, and it just feels like it fits our general style of development, and so leading into Bugsnax, we were like, oh, we have to have a theme song, like we can't do this without a theme song. It just feels like the perfect way to both do something that fits the game really well, and then also like get that initial promotion rolling, like with like an earworm that people will, even besides the game, outside of the game, want to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys nailed it, and Caro Bonita nailed it with this your theme, and also the extended version. So I have like, we're obsessed with your game, by the way. Like I know like
Thank
most games journalists seem to be obsessed with Bugsnax. This has been it's been a weird year. And
yeah, definitely.
I think that there's something that's just really delightful about what we're seeing there. Everything that we've seen, like we had that song and the reveal of the game. That's one element. We had the live performance of Caro Bonito at, you know, Jeff Keighley's show. That was another thing, because the lyrics in that song kind of tell a story of the game. And then we got gameplay recently, where we got to see this game is first person.
Yes.
You know, at least some of it.
Yeah.
Which,
I don't think
in that
people
first
expected
trailer,
that.
no one saw that coming, right? Like, I based on the first trailer, I was very surprised by that. So I dug into your Twitter a little bit. I know other people have. Right. In October of 2014, you started like hinting at this game's existence. You replied to someone about a game idea of hunting and eating bugs as a little monster to change traits about yourself through eating them and to become friends plus date others. And then you also, 2 days later, just tweeted the word Bugsnax.
Yeah.
In 2014. So I guess the question is, when did Bugsnax become a thing in your mind and in your company? Like, when was it like, when did you decide we're not going to do another Octodad right now, which like would have been the easy thing to do, right?
Sure.
And instead you're doing something very different. Like, when was that? What was that decision-making process like, and when did you guys really, or you folks really do that?
Well, we started the studio in 2011. I think it was like October 2011, and from the start, we knew, like, we had set out like kind of a mission statement and all the things you kind of do when you go to start a company. That at the time seemed, I don't know, weird and like kind of dorky to be like, this is our mission to like do these things. But you know, you have to like think about that kind of stuff in it, and it leads everybody in the direction they want to go. And part of that was, if Octodad does well, we want to always do like make our best effort to go out and create something entirely new after that. Like with each game that we release, if it does super well, maybe we won't just go right to a sequel. We'll go and try something else out because it's afforded us, the opportunity to take the time to do that. And so with Octodad having done super well for us, in I think it was September 2014, we did a month of pitching internally from everybody on the team of their different game ideas. And they started off with like 1-page treatments, moving into like 3-page, like this is what it would sound, feel, taste like, that kind of thing. And what an art style might be, and then moving into prototypes when we prototyped 3 of them that we picked from everybody's ideas. And Bugsnax was one of those. It was very different back then than it is now. It's basically been like 3 games worth of mechanics over time that we've like pared down to what it is. Trying to think if I want to get into that because that's a lot.
No, I'm curious though. So that's a lot of different gameplay mechanics, right? And yeah. I read in a previous interview you talked about scope having to kind of limit what you were doing there. From what I've seen, that there's a first-person perspective. There's trapping of Bugsnax that is going to be in this game. Like you're helping the Wumpuses, they're Grumpuses?
Grumpuses, yeah.
Grumpuses catch Bugsnax. You're helping the mayor out. But it seems like that's one thing. I guess like are there elements of gameplay that we haven't seen yet? Because that's a good way to ask a question without you spoiling something.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's stuff you haven't seen for sure. I think what people maybe... So one thing that was interesting with Octodad, kind of comparing the two, is that up until maybe 2 weeks before release, I don't think people really understood how much of a narrative driven game it was, or how much of a story there was to it. I think a lot of people assumed that it was just a toy, like a physics toy.
I thought it was just a theme song, right? That's the whole point, right? It was just a theme.
It's just like it's a meme, and it's fun and cool, and I like it, but there's not a lot of depth to it or something. But then we released our story launch trailer 2 weeks beforehand, and then people were like, "Oh, this is kind of sad and weird, and I didn't expect to feel these feelings about this octopus man. It's like normal human dad, but Bugsnax is similar in that it's very narrative driven. There's a lot of world building, stuff like that, which I think is what we do best. It's a little bit more of a gamer game, I guess, and then it's a first person, and there's quests and stuff like that.
I also feel like you're catering, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it feels to me, and maybe some of my colleagues,
sure,
you're catering to us a little bit because you're a journalist.
Yes.
How many games do you get to be a journalist? And there's C. Clumby Clumbernut there, and he's giving you crap about even going to Snacktooth Island there. I already saw the narrative forming there in that gameplay trailer. There's that guy. I actually wanted to ask you this.
Sure.
There's that one scene in your gameplay trailer with the guy with the conspiracy theory board behind him.
Oh, God.
Does he have a name? And are we allowed to know his name?
That's a good question. He has a name. Snorpy is his name. I can't say much else about him yet.
Okay.
But he's an interesting.
I got the vibe from him that he's kind of like Q to your James Bond. He seems to have new traps for you, other things. I've looked at that board extensively.
Yeah.
There's UFOs, radio waves, a mountain. There's some sort of factory. I don't know. There's a lot going on there. And now it may just be, it's conspiracy theory. That's the nice thing about having a conspiracy theory. If you're writing the narrative, not all of that has to be true.
Sure.
And it could be a red herring at that. But yeah, I see what you're saying about how the narrative of this game is probably the thing that will still surprise us the most. Is that I was like, once I realized that I was going to be a journalist and that this was a story, the story of the century, as the song put it, right? I think that's definitely exciting to hear. That's like, there's still a lot that we don't know about this. It seems like this could be a kind of dark game. Like you mentioned Octodad, Deadliest Catch, kind of a dark game, kind of like and not like a sad way, but like a very dark humor sort of game. Is that something we can expect with Bugsnax as well?
There are definitely themes and kind of messages that we're trying to get across in the game that are not always, bright and shiny, for sure. I don't, the joke online right now is like, oh, is Bugsnax secretly a horror game? I would not say that. It's not a horror game, but I think similar to Octodad, there's a surface level understanding of what it is, and then there is, did that person just say what they just said? Like, thinking about it a little bit deeper, thinking about what these characters are experiencing, that sort of stuff that can lead you to thinking about it a little bit more deeply and understanding it as more than just like a cartoon, I guess. Although at least like our influences, like cartoons that we experienced as kids, most of us were 90s kids or whatever, but like a lot of stuff back then, there were things in it that maybe your parents wouldn't see or understand or notice if they just like glance at the TV, but like themes and stuff that were a little bit deeper than what you would expect from something like Animaniacs or whatever, where there's like political satire in it that kids might not even notice.
Even Ren and Stimpy, like a lot of those shows were, it's like, I think I saw it on your studio's webpage, like you try to make things that a kid can enjoy and an adult can enjoy like together. I'm sure you saw that the 5-year-old react to your trailer. Jeff's kid. Yeah. So it's like, it was, I think that was awesome to see, that this is like, it's having a very broad appeal. Kind of getting back to the story. So is it correct to assume, and I don't want to spoil anything, is there just one city or village on Snaktooth Island? Is Snaxburg it?
It is one island.
Okay.
There is one main camp.
Okay. And then like the mayor of Snaxburg is the same character. It's just every time we see him in the trailer, he's got different arms or a different torso.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just based on when you're seeing that character, they've eaten something. So obviously it's changing them around.
Right. Yeah, that's all Filbo Fiddlepie is his name.
Okay. So here's an existential question about your game. Can you eat Bugsnax to the point where you yourself become edible?
I don't know if I want to answer that yet, but
okay. Hard-hitting questions from Shacknews.
I would take a look at some of the stuff that we announced, or not announced, but like mentioned on Twitter as like our influences for the game. Things like Apocalypse Now and Fern Gully.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like stuff that alludes to what we're trying to do, I think, with the game.
Touching on that, I just want to ask if you had a lot of your naming conventions and a lot of stuff that I've read and just the visual art style of a lot of the things. It just also reminds me a lot of the Jim Henson stuff that he worked on. Not only the Muppets, but his animated series and his other stuff that he's done. Were there any like inspirations pulling from that?
Work, stuff like that. But I don't know, like stuff even now, like Adventure Time, there's like a nuclear war in that show. So I don't know. There's a lot more to a lot of kids' entertainment than a lot of adults understand or like remember from things that maybe they experienced and didn't understand.
Yeah, that was the thing. Do you remember a show called Snorks? The Snorks, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Such an abstract show that nobody's heard about it. The second I started going, I'm like, kind of looks like the Snorks.
Yeah. I was talking about this on Twitter the other day. Someone was just talking about like how ratings boards have changed so much and become more stringent about things. And I was talking about a movie that always sticks out to me as this animated made-for-TV movie called Halloween Tree, where a kid is getting like an appendectomy or for some reason on Halloween, and then his friends are like riding through the forest to go to his house to like pick him up, but he's getting taken away in an ambulance, and then they like find his ghost. And then this whole movie, they make you think that like he's never coming back and he's just dead, and like they're not gonna get to revive him. There's not gonna be like a happy ending. And I just remember stuff like that as being like, what the fuck did I like watch at that age? It's so messed up. I don't know.
It's your Atreyu and the horse dying moment.
Exactly, it's that kind of thing for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think that this, you know, this game obviously has gotten a lot of attention because of the song and that reveal, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just interested in playing it whenever the hell this is going to launch. Is it still holiday is what you guys are shooting for? Because I like I said, I really liked the Deadliest Catch, and it seems like instead of just doing the same, you're bringing that same philosophy of trying to bring unique gameplay to almost a different genre. It's first person. I kind of want to talk to you about the first person aspect because I see your Twitter. You play a lot of Destiny 2.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just roughly like 1,400 hours of Destiny 2.
What are you looking at? Maybe not an FPS, not shooters in general, but first person games for some kind of, I guess, inspiration or things to borrow from the genre. Because I honestly was shocked. That was like, to me, that was the biggest news of the gameplay reveal, was that this was going to be a first-person experience. Like,
yeah.
What do you think you could bring to that genre that maybe wasn't there or is not there that often? Because so many times when people think first-person, they think shooter.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is aligned with Octodad in that we want to make a game that is accessible to a wide audience of people. While there are some like sandbox sort of action adventure elements to Bugsnax, there are no real failure conditions and things like you can't die, you don't have health, that kind of thing. Because we ultimately want people to experience not only just the gameplay but the full story of the game, and we don't think that sort of challenge is in any way helpful to conveying that. In terms of influence and inspiration, I don't know if there's. So I think Ape Escape is probably the closest in terms of gameplay, even though it's not exactly like that. But you know, you have a set of traps and tools and bait that you're using to figure out these ecosystems of Bugsnax, how they behave, how they interact with one another, and then how you can capture them using the tools that you have and the environment that they're in, while helping out these grumpuses who have these sort of like interpersonal and sometimes existential issues that you're trying to help them through, and many of them believe, choosing my words carefully, that like the answer to those problems are Bugsnax related in some way or another.
Okay.
So it's interesting because I don't know if we've taken any direct first-person influence in terms of gameplay, but we've taken story influence from first-person games like BioShock and things like that.
I've definitely heard BioShock referenced by you and some other folks around the project. The other game that comes to mind, or franchise I should say, is Pokemon.
Sure.
I think just the way that the Bugsnax look, the way that you're naming them, I saw them running around in balls during the gameplay, and hell, if the journalist aspect, I saw a couple of scenarios where you're going to be tasked with taking photos of Bugsnax, which is kind of similar to Pokemon Snap, you know, in a little bit. Did you look to that? Is that franchise something that you care about, or is that just a coincidence?
I mean, a lot of us either grew up playing Pokemon or still play Pokemon
Okay.
at the studio, and it's definitely been an influence in terms of how should we think about categorizing different Bugsnax, collecting and or capturing them. But, you know, it's kind of like, what if Pokemon, but you could eat Pikachu?
Yeah.
Or something like that. And so it's a little bit different, but there's definitely like we've taken a look at like the Pokedex and things like that. And we definitely initially played a lot of Pokemon Snap to try and figure out like how that might play into what the game is. And that was part of that initial exploration of mechanics, until we realized that being on rails like that kind of sucks now.
Oh, totally.
Like, I
was even afraid to mention Pokemon Snap for that reason. I didn't want to insult you.
Oh, sure. No, yeah. Like,
yeah.
the influence is there for sure, but like after going back and playing it, even though we love it from like a nostalgic, like, let's just go check this out again standpoint, riding those rails and trying to like take pictures of things is not as exciting as it was when I was like 10 or something.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of dull. I feel like I'm like ragging on Pokemon Company right now, but
no,
it's just not the same as it was back then, and like standards for how, you know, engaging a game should be have changed a lot over time.
Totally.
In general.
I think that's one of their most experimental titles that they've ever released, especially at the time. And there were constraints with the N64 that you're not dealing with.
Sure.
This game's coming out on PS5. It's coming out on PC on the Epic Game Store. So it's not. I think that I'm sure that there's folks at the Pokemon Company who look back at Snap and are like, if only we did this, and this game would have been, X. I feel like anyone who creates art, anyone who creates games, they look back at their projects like that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what changes, if any, they make to the remaster.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, this one that's coming out on Switch.
Yeah.
I always thought Pokemon Snap would have been like a cool AR app for the phone. Like I feel like there probably would have been something there, but Nintendo gonna Nintendo. I kind of want to ask you, just going back to that, like lessons from what you've already done. Are there any lessons that you learned from Octodad and Deadliest Catch and the Kickstarter that you brought to Bugsnax, that you're like, let's not do it this way, or let's do this again, or?
I don't know if we would go back to Kickstarter as long as we had the choice. Our audience was great for Kickstarter. Like, nobody was hounding us for anything or complaining that like it's taking too long or anything like that. But now it seems like the perception of that entire system has kind of changed. And also, when we were doing that, Kickstarter, having a Kickstarter in general was a news story and beat. And now it's like, I'm sure you guys have experienced this, getting just like a ton of, oh, we're doing a Kickstarter for our game. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, unless you're doing something, especially interesting, so are thousands of other people.
That's right.
And at the time, it was more of an exciting news beat. And I think some of the things that we follow, I don't know, some other indies might like frown upon this sort of thing, but we look for those marketing beats in terms of like, what are we going to support? How are we going to make this next thing noticeable to people outside of just making a game that by itself is interesting? And also, because you kind of have to hit it from every angle at our size of studio.
Have you heard of, I'm sure you have, Fig?
Yeah.
And that whole concept of revenue shares. Do you think that's more attractive from a dev standpoint, or does it not really matter because you're still getting the same amount of money regardless of how it's crowdfunded? Like, it actually creates an obligation for devs almost, because you have to return cash to those revenue shareholders, right?
I feel like with us, it's hard for me to talk on stuff like that because we come from a place of kind of privilege of our games having done super well so far. And so we're not in a position where we need that kind of revenue or that kind of funding.
Yeah.
And so if we can avoid any like outside investment, at least in like directly deciding like what we're making or anything like that, we will, because the whole point of doing our own thing was to be able to do our own thing, without anybody saying, hey, could you make this a little less this or a little more that or whatever. We already have enough of that internally.
But then, like, another way that you can secure financing without having to issue shares in your company or get a new shareholder or go out and get debt is to have exclusive deals.
Yeah.
And you have two here. You have a PS5, which I'm assuming, I don't know what, console exclusivity, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. Someday you're going to put this on Switch or else I'm going to cry. But, you know, it's fine. It could come out in 2022. I'm not going to be mad at you. But yeah, and then it's also on Epic Game Store. It feels like that decision can give your company some kind of peace of mind, where either it's, I think in the case of Epic, there's like a guaranteed amount of revenue, or it's very clear. They structure these deals in a way where it has to benefit the dev to decide to go exclusive, because you are, in theory, giving up a little bit of revenue from being cross-platform or multi-platform, right? So
sure,
that decision had to have been pretty interesting for you this time, because it wasn't like Octodad was really in a similar situation. This was like the first time. Epic Game Store didn't even exist last time you guys made a game.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about that aspect of the industry right now and how that helps devs.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think anything that a developer can kind of do that fits within their own kind of moral compass of what is right and wrong for them to, you know, have their studio continue to be stable and continue to support the people that they work with, is probably a good thing. I think for us, it's been a lot about grabbing hold of opportunities as they arise, if they make sense for our kind of studio goals. For instance, like we were already talking to Steam with Octodad before Deadliest, before Steam Greenlight was a thing. But then we chose to go through Greenlight anyways, because since it was a new, exciting thing, we knew we would get the kind of press surrounding being on Greenlight. And we were confident in the game already having gotten a lot of attention that we would be able to get through it. And it just kind of added to that and let fans kind of own that fact that they push it across the finish line, getting on Steam. And so when those kind of opportunities appear, we kind of judge them and balance them out with what our goals are to make sure that they are beneficial from kind of multiple directions. And I think as long as that exclusivity is within what the developer sees as their goal set, that it makes sense for them. And it's hard to, I understand why it's frustrating sometimes as a player, given that, you know, maybe they have to wait X amount of time before they can then buy the game or play the game. But that's something that you kind of have to consider and take into account when you're making those decisions as a developer of what you're going to do. Like, we know that maybe we will lose X many players initially, maybe they'll come back later on a different platform, but it kind of all depends. But it's a risk we take, given that knowing like, hey, the 8 or 9 people I worked with now have money to pay rent and do all these things that are like essential, and it's okay if a couple people are mad at us for that. You know, we're not trying to be like secretive about like why we would take an exclusivity deal. It's nothing, I don't know, as you become a developer, it's much less about I don't know, going like a little off track, like being someone who's played games his whole life. There was a time between ages, you know, like 10 and 15 or something like that, where I was like, I'm all about Xbox or I'm all about PlayStation or whatever.
Yeah, there was console identity back in the day.
Yeah. And over time, that's just become less and less of my, like, how I identify myself, and it's more just like I want to play this game, and it happens to be on this platform. And so, if I really want to play this game and it seems good enough to warrant it, I'm going to buy this thing or invest in this platform. And that going away, or that kind of changing over time, changes your perspective on and being a developer in general, being able to kind of empathize with those choices. I don't think I've ever gotten mad about something being exclusive since then. Kind of just knowing it's more of an acceptance of like, well, I just won't play that for a while, I guess. I don't know.
I think that's the disconnect today in today's society, is that people think that, oh, he wanted this guy making this great game, only wanted to be on PS4, either A, because he just likes PS4, two, because they gave him a lot of money and they think you go on your boat and go off into the sunset laughing, but that's not how it works at all, though. I mean, why would you say no to more development funds? Why would you say more development funds? Right.
For us, it's solely about like, will we have X amount of time after this game comes out to then make another game? At the time and the money required to do that is a lot more, even for a team of our size, a small team, than a lot of people understand. Because, not only are you paying salaries, like ideally you're also paying for health insurance and taxes and all of that other stuff that come along with that. A lot of hidden costs, office space, insurance for that office space, stuff like that I don't think a lot of people think of, and it kind of all adds up. And just to give the developers on our team peace of mind of knowing like, hey, you're going to be employed for X amount of time. You don't have to worry about that. There's no ambiguity in that. You're not saying like, will I have a job in 2 months? We don't ever want to put anybody that we hire into that sort of situation, because there's just like an amount of responsibility when you're employing people that you take on, that I take really seriously.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because at larger studios, it's very much work for hire. Once the project's done, you're a contractor, you're gone. It seems like you're building a team and you're taking care of your team. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, and I mean, in cases in which we do have contract people, we're explicit of like, this is how long this contract lasts. I think the problems come in when a bigger studio maybe brings someone on and says, well, maybe if you're really great, we'll bring you on full time and, after your contract, and they lead people on. In instances I have spoken to people about or been told about, and then they just never do. Or even just like leaving it open like that introduces a lot of unnecessary anxiety into people's lives that I don't know if those higher up people making decisions are always aware of or always care as much about as they should.
Are there pets in Bugsnax?
Pets?
Yeah.
In what? Like, does the player have a pet?
Companions, yeah.
Like, is there, like, I don't know what a dog version of a Grumpus would be, but like a Grumpy, I don't know. But
that's a good question. I don't know. So, I mean, in the trailer, you've seen that there's like a strawberry Bugsnax inside the ball. And you have that as a tool. It's probably the closest thing to a pet.
Can you pet it?
You can hold it.
Okay.
You can pet it. Because it's in a ball, so it'd be kind of weird to like rub your furry paw on the ball.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, well, I got that guide now. I can go write that for Shacknews. You cannot pet the dog in Bugsnax because there might
Very
not be.
Sorry.
It's okay. There's that Twitter account that drives game development now. Have you seen that? Like,
yeah, can you pet the dog in this game?
There's also like, does the game violate the Geneva Convention? That's another bot that's out there.
I need to find that one. I have not found that one yet.
That's a really good one, actually.
That's great.
No, you've been very generous with your time, so we'll let you go soon. It sounds like your doggy is hungry too, so we want your dog to eat. How does it feel to be close to the end of this project? I know, like, it doesn't sound like it's Bugsnax as a service, right? So this
probably
you're
not.
gonna ship a game and it's gonna be done, and maybe there's DLC or something, but for the most part, it's pretty much done, right? Or
yeah.
done.
I mean, it's a pretty like, you play the game and then you finish the game thing. We don't know if we'll do maybe some DLC or something like that in the future, but it's weird because I was I'm obviously, like, as we're getting close to the end, I'm playing the game a lot and just checking like what's kind of on, what needs to be polished a little bit more or fixed or whatever. And it's interesting to be able to play through the entire game and know that it is essentially there. And as all of like the voiceover comes in and our like localizations for subtitles and stuff like that come in, it's wild to, it doesn't feel real after doing this for roughly 6 years now. But it's really cool. And excuse me, like, I don't know, we've had people play through the whole thing and just kind of like watch them play and get feedback and stuff like that. And watching them kind of get to the end and hit the major story beats and how they react to things has been interesting and exciting, and I feel like it's doing what we want it to do. So I'm happy about it.
That's awesome. And do you have a favorite Bugsnax?
Favorite? I think
it's tough.
Yeah,
it's
it's
picking
tough
your favorite child.
because there's 100 of my favorite children. So I think the Sandipede and Sub Sandipede, which is like a sub sandwich kind of train.
Yeah, I love that.
Because there's like a head at either end, and then there's like body pieces, and they're like, it's as if someone cut the sandwich into pieces, but they're all following each other as if they're...
Did you ever watch Wings?
No.
It might be worth just watching this episode, but they're like, there was this concept of the big sandwich in the show, and it was like, if you got someone a big sandwich, it was like a big day. Like someone was leaving the island, or
yeah.
So I instantly thought of the big sandwich when I saw that, because they always cut those in like 6-inch increments or foot increments or whatever. Oh, that's awesome. That's a good Bugsnax to pick. I was floored by the pizza moth reveal, because that's the largest Bugsnax. That's how you left us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's the largest one that you guys know about.
Oh, okay. I see how it is. So like, okay, that's I won't press there, but no, just congratulations on being so close to launch and the reception that you've had. Our community at Shacknews is like obsessed with your game. Our staff is really obsessed with it as well. We wrote a feature. I'll send you a link to it, where we all guess what the story is. You're in rarefied air. We did this for Death Stranding last year.
Basically the same level of game.
Yeah.
Sure.
So same budget.
More pictures.
Same amount of mocap studios and everything.
That's been some of the interesting, like, I know we're trying to like wrap up, but like that's been some of the more interesting like experiencing us being next to those bigger games is very weird, because people keep putting us against like Halo Infinite and stuff. Like you watch people argue about which console they're gonna buy and stuff like that, and it's bizarre to be like, well, we've got Bugsnax, and like, oh well, we've got Halo Infinite, and it's like, those games are not like just completely different.
It's like an indie studio versus this massive AAA studio. It's like the flagship IP for a console versus an unknown IP. But yeah, I think it's right place, right time, right song, and this console generation, no offense to Sony or you guys, there's not a whole lot of software that's coming out this year. It seems it seems like COVID-19 has really hurt development, especially for these larger studios that aren't as, I think being a smaller entity, you probably were able to adapt to work from home better than some of your competitors.
Yeah, I can't imagine attempting to wrangle multiple, like so many different teams and teams of teams and stuff like that.
It's regimented. It's very, very. I used to work in film industry, and it's very regimented and very like you look. If your job is to watch this Vicus plant on set, that's all you do. And there's this whole department that runs people who watch Vicus plants on set. Like it's so weird. It's such a weird. Like the creative aspect gets sucked out so quickly because it's so big.
Right.
Yeah, we were uniquely prepared for this because we already had a virtual office, so it wasn't that big of a deal for us. But yeah, normally we would have probably done this interview at some event, at GDC, at E3, at Gamescom or whatever. But obviously we've all had to pivot with this. I think your studio's done a really good job in the face of all these different challenges to even get to the point where you can release it this year.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a little weird, but I think we were somewhat prepared in that, like you're saying with you guys, like before we had an office, we were all working out of our apartments and stuff like that. So we've already been kind of through this to some degree, and like, yeah, there's some adaptation, and then there's some just like general dread from the earth right now. But outside of that, I feel like we're doing pretty well. I just wish sometimes that I could, you know, like turn around and like yell at the person behind me instead of having to try and chat them on Discord or whatever. But
yeah, that's true. It's been weird, like working in this industry, being a games journalist. I've never been home this long in my adult life. It's kind of weird.
We would be at PAX right now otherwise.
Yeah, that's right.
You know,
yeah, we would have been at PAX. I would have flown from PAX to Tokyo Game Show. Like it was a never-ending thing. Are you folks gonna be at TGS in any capacity? Because you're on PS5.
I don't know, honestly, yet. Everything's been kind of pretty fast, and we're mostly focused on just kind of finishing up the game right now. And that's been an interesting thing about being a smaller developer, because getting the amount of attention that we've been getting, because players and fans are like, oh, so when's the next like trailer gonna drop? And we're like, we make our trailers. And so we're also making the game right now and trying to finish that. And so we have to be very selective about like how much time and how many trailers and screenshots and appearances and things like that we go for.
I think you guys are doing a great job on social media with keeping your community engaged. The whole showcasing Bugsnax and stuff. And no, I think it's gotta be, like you mentioned, to be held in the same breath as Halo in a launch cycle. It's got to be really weird.
Yeah.
Especially as a Bungie guy, like someone who's like playing Destiny 2 1,400 hours.
I am also excited for 343 to put that out. Like, I also want to play that game, so it's really weird to be held anywhere near it. But yeah, it's been interesting trying to handle the social stuff and the promotion this time around. With Octodad, we did, outside of like Sony's help in promoting it, we did a lot of it ourselves. But then this time around, we've been working with Pop Agenda, who's been helping us out a lot with the like wrangling promotion and PR beats and marketing beats and social media stuff. Just because it's gotten to the point where I've even realized that like, oh, I should probably start handing things off to other people and not trying to do everything, you know, ourselves. So.
I think it's tough when you're a CEO or a president of a small company, though, because, like you said, you do a lot of stuff, you know, and you're still involved in the development process and the organizational process. So it's like, I think it's just tough in general when you're in the position that you are, to reach out to other people and be like, help.
Yeah, well, because everybody at the studio does like 3 to 5 things or whatever. Like, yeah, I'm doing some kind of marketing and press stuff, but I'm also doing the business of like running a company in general, but then also running a game development studio. And then I'm also doing like build management and some QA and like, I don't know, there's just so much stuff all over the place that needs to be done that
if there's any company that understands, it's Oz's company. It's us. We understand that pain.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, I'm CEO, I'm editor-in-chief, and I call myself the janitor too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you're gonna do all the miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, cause you care.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, okay, I could just go to bed right now, or I could stay up that extra 30 minutes so that I don't have to do this tomorrow.
Right.
And then that just snowballs. And in 2020, it's a giant boulder coming down the mountain at me now.
Yeah, we've been lucky enough that I've been able to start handing some stuff off, and that's been like really helpful and beneficial to my own well-being.
Mental health.
Absolutely.
Mental and physical health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, we'll let you get out of here. This is this has been a delight. As you can see, I'm very well versed in young horses.
You are.
I've been paying attention to your company pretty much since the Octodad demo, or whatever. I don't know what you call it. It was like a student project.
Yeah, I think it's technically it's just called Octodad, and then Octodad Deadliest Catch.
Yeah, but Deadliest Catch is excellent. That's one of my. It was. It actually picked up a little bit of speed running, right? Like there were people that were speed running Octodad. Do you think, because you're working on this now, do you think Bugsnax could have a speed run element to it, or is it a little different?
No, I think there could be, and I've thought about it, and we've kept it in mind while making it of like what would someone who's trying to do this as quickly as possible do at a bare minimum to get through this like section of the game. Yeah,
like there's like the optimum path and like okay.
Yeah,
cool.
We paid a lot of attention to the speedrunning community for Octodad, and that was always really cool to see them at like Games Done Quick and stuff.
Absolutely. It's just we just had SGDQ wrap up last week. As I was thinking about that, I was like, I wonder if Bugsnax was going to be here next year. It sounds like it might. I'm pretty sure it will. If you give those folks the opportunity to speedrun something, it's crazy. Like, if you watch those folks stream, I'm sure you do. They're so regimented, and when they discover something, it's like they have these eureka moments, and it's intense.
It's like training for anything else. It's wild.
So Bugsnax Esports League gonna launch in 2021.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Carl's Jr. and Red Bull.
It'll be nationals soon. It'll be great.
God, you could get some fast food love here. Like, I'm actually kind of shocked. I'm shocked Arby's hasn't tweeted about you guys yet. I
hope they do. That's how you know you made it, right? You get the Arby's tweet.
That's the definition of making it now. Yeah, when Arby's tweets you. Okay, I don't know if you can say or not, but have you been approached by a fast food company with like some kind of cross media promotion?
We've talked to food companies.
Interesting.
Nice.
But
I think there's obvious synergies there.
I don't know if anything will happen from it, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you get in those conversations, and I've with some other friends who work in AAA, and like when you get in with these companies, not your kind of these companies you're talking about, certain companies, you're like, cool, how much money are you going to give us? And they're like, oh, no, we thought you were going to give us money. And then it becomes like a confusion moment of like, no, we're helping you. No, we're helping you.
A lot of business stuff like that, a lot of business stuff in general ends up like that, where you get the initial kind of pitch email, and then you read through it, and you're like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Let's like figure out what this is. And then you get in the meeting, and you're like, oh, we both thought this was something completely different than what, was initially said.
Yep. Oh, yeah. That happened to me at GDC. Someone tried to buy Shacknews.
Yeah.
Like 2 years into me owning it. I bought the site in 2013.
Yeah.
So in like GDC 2015, this guy's like, I want to have a meeting with you. I want to buy your website. I'm like, okay, I'll take, like, my other shareholders like, you got to take this meeting. I'm like, fine. Yeah. It was the Friday of GDC, and I had to get on a plane like right after it. So like, you know those meetings like at the Westin in the morning or something. And I'm just sitting there. I'm grumbly. I'm already grumpy
and stuff.
I'm a total grumpus already as I sit down there, and the guy's like, "I want to buy your site for your RSS feed," and I was like, "Get out of here."
Yeah, right. You're not serious about this at all.
And he's like, I won't even tell you for how much because it'll insult you. And I'm like, I'm already insulted.
Why would you even set the meeting? Yeah, people are really interesting.
It was because our RSS feed was featured in Steam. Like, because Valve is super lazy with how they curate stuff. So like, there were like 4 websites that have been on Steam for eternity. And because we're an ancient website, we were there. They're like, we're going to populate your RSS with our articles. And I'm like, no, that's not what's happening.
We get people who try to buy, like, I assume it's just all spam, but people who try to buy ad spots on our website, which doesn't make any sense at all. Like, we don't run a blog anymore or anything like that.
Like, link insertion. Yeah. Like, hey, in your About Us page, it'd be really cool if you linked to this electric drill. And you're like, no.
Not at all, no.
It's a dark time for those online marketers.
I've gotten better over time at like noticing exactly what someone's trying to kind of do from that initial email and be like, oh, no, thank you, we're good.
But yeah, it's rough out there. But yeah, I understand what you're talking about. Like where you go into a meeting thinking one thing and then you leave and you're like, oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
That's not what I thought.
You're like, but what would that do for me? Nothing. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for your
Well,
time, I guess.
But then there's got to be somebody that they did get like excited about that, and then I don't know. There's a lot of
yeah, they had to have had success
right.
to have a template for that pitch. Like someone had to have bitten on it. But yeah, I feel like especially online, it's a whole other ball of wax. But it's like the online ad industry is in tumult right now. We don't run display ads on Shacknews.com because 90% of our users are blocking ads.
Right.
It's like I don't want to piss off the 10% of users who aren't. So we switched to a subscription service, and I think that's kind of the future. But that's going to be on content creators. The people who hear that are the marketing companies.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I like anything that I really enjoy, I have a subscription to. Mm-hmm. Anything that I, go to regularly enough. Yeah.
So maybe down the road, Bugsnax on Game Pass after it launches on Switch, maybe?
Oh, there's a secret question at the end here.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I got a double in there.
I wouldn't say absolutely not, but it just kind of depends.
Was Octodad ever on any of those like subscription things?
No, not yet. We have thought about it a couple times, but honestly, the game has continued to do so well that we haven't had to consider it as like a serious thing, or it at least just hasn't seemed worthwhile, given what the kind of exchange would be, I guess. But I don't know, we're not inherently against that. It just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
The game
I'm
is
trying to get you to triple dip. Like
Yeah.
you got your PS5 and your Epic Game Store launch, and you got your exclusive money for that, and then a year later or so you can put it out on Switch, and then 2 years later it can come out on Game Pass, get you some recurring revenue while you're working on
next thing.
Okay, this is it, and then we'll leave.
Uh-oh.
Are Bugsnax and Octodad in the same universe?
I don't know if we're willing or if we're ready to commit to that yet
Okay.
or not. Maybe we'll do like a Remedy thing where later on we're like, Alan Wake and Control, same universe.
Yep.
I'm sure they've been thinking about that for a long time, but I don't know. We've considered it, but I don't think we've made any decisions on whether that's canon or not.
Oh god, I just thought of a modding Octodad as the playable character so that his tentacles turn into hot dogs.
We tried to do VR Octodad like first person, and it was a nightmare. So
Okay, let's not do that then.
as an aside.
Awesome. Well, Philip, thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we got to have this chat. I hope we can chat after we've played the game, because I'm going to have even more questions, I think.
Yeah, it'll be a lot easier to talk about once it's out. It's weird making narrative-driven games right now, given how a lot of like service games work, and I don't know, not being able to talk about certain stuff is, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff I wish we could talk about right now.
I see your brain turning as you're trying to go through the
There's
NDAs in which you're not
there's
allowed to
something
talk about.
super cool about this game that he hasn't told us, folks. So you have to buy it. It's coming out. We don't have a date yet, right?
Yeah, no specific date yet. Just
But holiday 2020.
this year.
This year. I mean, we're running out of months.
Yeah, we're in September now, so.
You only got 4 months left. It's got to come out like soon-ish. But yeah, it hasn't gone gold or anything yet. So you're still working out bugs and last-minute tweaks, like you said. So
Yeah.
we'll let you get back to it. We really appreciate your time, and
thank you.
You folks know how to do it for Shacknews. You've been doing it already, and I appreciate any studio that's releasing a game this year. It's been a ridiculous year to try to do anything.
Just to exist and not do anything is difficult this year. Yeah.
But no, folks like you are doing a great service to society because you're providing a much needed distraction and joy. in a year full of sadness and all sorts of things, tumult.
Yeah, I try to remind myself of that kind of thing. Sometimes it can be difficult when you're in it all the time. You're like, oh, it's just video games. This is so silly. Like, but then you go online on Twitter or whatever, and people are just like really enjoying it. Maybe it made their day a little bit brighter, a little bit better, and that makes it worth it.
Yeah, I saw you tweet out like, "Thanks everybody for being excited about Bugsnax."
Yeah, it's neat to work on something for so long, and then while it is it was anxiety inducing before we released, like before we announced it, it was great to see everybody's response.
Awesome.